Welcome to the Block Podcast. I am Chris Wells.
And I'm Carolyn Wenner. We are emotionally focused therapists.
And we are here to be curious about the blocks in your relationships.
And to learn to see those blocks as opportunities to connect. Welcome back to Blocked. Back again. So, we've gotten some suggestions from folks about topics that we could focus on. But this one actually is sort of personal to me, something I've been kind of thinking about in myself. Mm-hmm. But also, I saw this quote on Instagram that said, "Perfectionism is the fear of rejection and abandonment in disguise." Mm. And I thought, that's relational.
Yeah.
And the reason that I was thinking about it for myself was about my long-standing tendency to procrastinate.
Yeah.
We, in the last year, you and I both have kind of had some transition going on in our business lives, and it has meant that I have taken on regular tasks that I didn't used to do, but were a part of running a therapy business. And I noticed that I pushed the things that I don't know how to do and therefore really don't like, or other way around, I don't like and I don't know, off as long as I possibly can. If there is a deadline, I will do a better job of getting it done. But without that, I just avoid.
Yeah.
And I was really thinking about how does that happen? And so we wanted to talk today about procrastination and or perfectionism as blocks.
Sure.
Because I think the reason that we're putting them together too is that there is some research that says that even though procrastination may look on the surface like somebody's just being lazy or they don't care about getting a task done, that actually procrastination can be rooted in perfectionism.
Yeah, and maybe on the other side of that, perfectionism can seem like hyper focus on something that takes the attention away from your partner. Mm-hmm. And that maybe can send a message of well, do you not care about me too? But they're both rooted in that relational kind of aspect to it.
Yeah.
I like what that quote was. That it's a response to, it's like the hidden message of fear of abandonment. Or fear of rejection too.
Fear of rejection and abandonment in disguise.
Yeah, like it's kind of masking that, and like maybe that perfectionism is like I have to get this right because somebody's going to leave me if I don't, or I'm going to be left alone.
Right.
Or that kind of uncertainty, the anxiety, the fear about all of the different tasks. So I'm going to put them off as long as I can because I'm putting off that fear of letting somebody down or letting myself down.
Yeah. So I think what we're saying here is that there's a lot of fear in this, right? And when we were preparing for today and just wrapping our minds around what are we going to say about this? I mean, it's such a part of what I experience. And what I was noticing about myself was that, so really where this came out, right? Because I don't know how to say it without telling the backstory is, so becoming a business owner has expanded so many things. Like I was not raised in a very entrepreneurial family. I have a deep aversion to Excel spreadsheets. They stress me out to the end. They overwhelm me. They scare me. I sort of said I have had one checking account and one savings account for my entire life. And now I have multiple accounts. And so the stress of managing all of this, and my partner says to me, he was doing a bit of work and he pulls up his Excel spreadsheet because he's really good with that stuff and counted up the number of accounts he has. And it wasn't double digits, but it was approaching them. And I'm stressing at like 3 or 4. And so then it gave way to this talk about our upbringing. And his family did run a business, and he was an only child, or is an only child, so he was brought up with this focus on managing your money well and work, and how can you work smarter, not harder, and like a focus on financial pieces. And I said, well, I'm the middle of 5 kids. There's quite a big age gap between my older 2 sisters and me. And so I said, I was raised caring for my younger siblings, right? Yeah. I was the babysitter for quite a while. And so my focus growing up was relationship, right? Sure. I know nothing about business stuff. So I'm learning all of that on the fly. And then I just realized, through no fault of my own, or not my own, well, yes, my own, but also through no fault of my caregivers, my parents, if I zoom out and look at this, right? So I got connection and feedback and positive reinforcement around relational things, right? That what I contributed to the family in terms of, babysitting my siblings and helping to, keep the house picked up and all of that, that was celebrated. For my partner, he got feedback and therefore connection around, this is my speculation, these are not his words, but around this success, right? Around his acumen with, I'm trying not to say like the profession, but his accomplishments and achievements in business, let's say. So it makes good sense that he would be more likely to approach those things, right? He would dive in because there's been connection there. Whereas I haven't had as much connection around, financial matters and business-minded things. And so I tend to procrastinate and avoid.
So those things that there's not familiarity with it. So there's
I don't have a base knowledge,
so there's the uncertainty about the task, there's the fear, the anxiety that comes up, and that's a driver of a lot of procrastination, with and also like there's this perfectionism that they kind of are going hand in hand in there, because there's like I need to get this right, I'm gonna let somebody down, so I'm gonna put it off as long as I can, but maybe those things that I do have a good handle on, like I'm going to be perfect at those, because I can't let others down,
or myself,
right?
Who says I really want to fail at this,
right, because what does that say to you? What does that mean to you if I've either failed myself or I failed my family, that has brought me along all this way doing all of these things, and I'm not doing it the right way, or I'm not doing it well, or I'm letting my partner down, or I'm where that fear that comes up is driving these two things. These either it's I'm going to be perfect at these things that I am familiar with, or I'm going to procrastinate, I'm going to put off these things that I'm not familiar with.
Right. So I like what you're saying, right? There's a lot of components here, right? One is like that lack of a foundation, right? There's not the base knowledge. The other thing is whether we do or don't have a base knowledge, but it seems to pair well with if we don't, then the pressure, the internal pressure, mostly internal, but also external about, I'm going to let myself down, I'm going to let my partner down, or my employer, or my customers. So there's a pressure that can contribute to these things continuing, right? So I continue to procrastinate, or I continue to hold myself to this standard of perfection, because if I don't, bad things are going to happen.
Right. And I wonder, like, how that, we kind of went into a little bit of the, your background and your partner's background, and how those kind of shape those differently. But there's this aspect of, like, when other people are maybe in that with us, we're able to, because it's about we're dysregulated because of the anxiety and the fear.
Yes.
So if we had somebody else in that with us that helped to regulate that, or if we had better internal mechanisms for regulating that, then the perfectionism or the procrastination might not be as strong. Not that we wouldn't do either one of those things,
right?
But maybe it'd be less of, or it'd be more of a choice for us.
Yeah, I think what you're kind of pointing to is that need for co-regulation.
Yes.
And it's interesting because, keeping it with where this started from, my partner a couple of years ago, I was planning my first EFT training that I was organizing for other therapists. And he pulls up an Excel spreadsheet to go over the budget and talk about dysregulation. I was so anxious. He's asking me these questions about budget and this and that, and I have no idea. And then I feel silly for not knowing.
Yeah.
And, or at least that's what I say to myself, like, wow, this is really dumb of you. And I just devolved, right? I just had a breakdown. I was tearful and everything. And he said, it's okay. It was very reassuring. I'm here with you. And I said, I just feel awful that I have no idea how to do this. And he says, listen, I do these things every single day.
Yeah.
And it was a reminder for me that everybody was a beginner at one time. I'm not so skilled at this because I don't engage with it all the time.
Yeah.
And there was some co-regulation there. And then it became a thing. He's like, this I know well, but there's all kinds of other things I don't know well. And so then later on in our relationship, something would come up and I would say, oh, babe, this is my Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I got this.
You've got yours, I've got mine.
Yeah.
So that helped, right?
Yeah.
That co-regulation and returning to that place. But I know returning to those hardships and engaging with them again and again and again to help kind of lessen the need for the protective strategy of procrastination or perfectionism.
Yeah. So I would imagine, like, along the way, of life for you, like when you were maybe faced with an unknown task, there was probably a lot of history of not having somebody there with you in that. Right.
So
you wouldn't have that learned.
No.
That I know that that if somebody else is here with me, that it'll be okay. Or that kind of, maybe, I don't know if confidence is the right word, but
it's funny that you say that, because I was thinking, people say to me all the time, like, gosh, you just seem so confident. And then my very good friend said, I always thought you were so confident, but you have insecurities too. And I'm like, well, yes, my blood is red.
Right.
I'm a mammal. I'm a human being. Of course, I have a boatload of insecurities. But I think, I don't know. And it's not like a therapy session for me. I can't say exactly why, but I have had a lot of, like, sink or swim, you've got to figure this out experiences, right?
Yeah.
And maybe one, again, and I don't want to speak poorly of my parents, right? There are 5 kids. My dad worked third shift. A lot of my childhood, my mom worked second shift, right? There's just not a lot. There's more kids than hands. And so there, my parents' hands were full, and there was a lot of stuff that there just wasn't the capacity to say, let me walk you through this.
Right.
Also, it was the 80s, right? Like, parents didn't do that stuff, right? Like, that was your responsibility as a kid. So I, learned to be like, that was my job. That was my responsibility. And then that tendency for me to say, oh, okay, I'll figure it out, translated into people thinking that I know or knew more than I know or knew. And it's not until I had experiences where I saw some folks coming up behind me and they got more help or more assistance. And I thought, oh gosh, I never knew it could be that way. So even though I would do the sink or swim thing, inside I was floundering, feeling that pressure.
Right, because you learn, I have no choice but to figure this out on my own.
And when you know the expectation is that you get it done, I think that perfectionism makes sense.
Yeah. That
it's on me to do this, and most of the time what we're doing really matters to us, so we want to do a good job with it.
Yeah. And on the outside, we talked about this a little bit before, we were recording this episode, that, it may look something like, procrastination may look like the inability to manage your time.
Yes.
When maybe it's trouble more so with like managing the emotion that's coming up, the mood that's coming up.
Right. Right.
And so that maybe that anxiety that comes up that says, oh my gosh, I am alone in this, I have to do this by myself, it becomes overwhelming, and I'm going to put this off, because it's too intense to deal with. It's too much to handle.
Yeah, and I don't know, and this is not just, I'm saying this as in first person, but this is not specific to me. So, for example, I don't know how to regulate this anxiety. I don't know how to sit with it, how to validate it, how to move with it and get to a place of being more calm or settled.
Right.
So the next best option I have is to get away from it, and I push it aside.
Yeah.
And the way we learn to self-regulate is first we have someone co-regulate with us, right? That's how do people learn to talk? Is that their parents speak to them and they mimic the sounds and they learn the words that way. And the same is true with our emotion. And so it makes good sense that if you haven't had co-regulation in those places, in those challenges, your body learns a different way, and it works, or it works good enough, so you keep doing it.
Sure. And I can see, on the flip side with the perfectionism, how that goes in hand in hand. So the example that's coming up, and this isn't personally related, it just kind of, came up. I don't remember where I heard this or not, but think like with like housework or household tasks, like whether it's maybe loading the dishwasher.
It's always the dishes with us.
I know, it's always
I like it.
Loading the dishwasher or doing the laundry. And the perfectionist is like, wanting to get this right, but like asking for help about it, it's like, can you load the dishwasher? No, you're doing it wrong. I'll do it. I'll take it. Let me just do this because you're doing it wrong. And that need or desire to have that right, it keeps us from allowing the co-regulation, allowing somebody else in to help.
Yes.
And that maybe that perfectionism says that I have to do this, kind of in that same vein, I have to do this all on my own. I have to get it right all on my own.
Yes.
And because that's how I get value, or that's how I'm, how I receive, praise, or I can that satisfies something internally for me, and I can't let anybody else do this because they're not going to do it right. So then we're preventing or hindering anybody from coming alongside us to help us with it.
Yeah, it is interesting, because that when you were talking about that, I was thinking about that expectation of getting things right. And I think I go back to when something really matters, right? It says something about me as a person when I do well at something or when I don't do well at something, right? I think we want to kind of shape this up to say, actually, no, who you are as a person is pretty static, that your value is not based on how well you perform. But I think, a lot of us don't come from places where we have inherently received that message over and over and over, right? And so we're all working to get to that place, that sort of securely attached place where I see the value in myself. And even when you do, I think what you do matters, right? It just may not attach so deeply to how you see yourself. So, but in that example where you say, like, I have to do this, right? It's not gonna, you're doing it wrong, and I interrupt you. It's kind of suggesting that perfectionism, like getting things right, having things done the right way, has brought a sense of safety.
Yeah.
And allowing you in to help rattles my sense of safety. And again, I would go back to, like, where does that sense of safety come from? Was it that there was connection around these things? And in this way, some, I don't like the word disorder, but that is what they're called in the DSM, right? So like we can see generational patterns of anxiety or of, you know, depression or whatever, where this is how we do it. And we do experience connection around that. So it gets strengthened, or there was no connection around that. And I was the safest when things were just so. And to risk a new form of safety is very stressful, right?
Yeah.
And we may not be aware. I mean, I think it's cool to be speculating this, right? Because we do want to invite people to be curious about themselves and or about their partners.
Sure.
And all the very good reasons that these two blocks that we're talking about, procrastination and perfectionism, could exist, how adaptive they might be. But also, we do want a different way of finding safety. Or really, we want more than one way, right? Like doing a good job, getting things perfect is one super fine way to, you know, have safety. It's not very attainable all the time, so it would be good to have another way.
Yeah, because what if we knew that our partners would accept us if things weren't 100% perfect? You know, that we knew that it would be okay, that there was safety there. You know, that I can do this and not do it right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And we're still going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, that makes so much sense with the perfectionism, but with the procrastination, like it just was a light bulb for me that I say to folks, like, I really, in this last almost a year of starting my own business, I do not do well with researching things. Like I don't do well with sitting down and reading. I tend to ask a lot of questions. And now I think I can understand myself better to say, I think I'm reaching for co-regulation. I'm reaching for another voice. I'm reaching for someone else to say, ugh, I hated that too. That is frustrating. And that when I do have that experience, I find that I tend to learn those tasks faster or those processes faster, and then I'm fine to do them on my own.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize until maybe even just this moment that I tend to say, well, that's the way I learn best, probably because there's so much co-regulation in it. And as an adult, I know I can share my frustration. I can ask for how people feel. As a younger person, as a kid, we might not know to ask that. We probably will show it, right? I know we were talking about, for example, homework at the kitchen table.
Yeah, sitting down like to do math homework, because you know even the math is really static. It changes, you know, like it's changed how it was taught when I grew up to how it's being taught for my kids now. And you know, as parents, like we go and we're trying to help our kids. We're like, okay, well this is how you do the problem. Okay, no, that's not how I learned it. Well, how did you learn it? Well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to do that. I can't help you with that. Right. And then the kid's like, okay, well, I guess I'm on my own.
Right. It does put kids in a tough position. And I don't think the kid is going to say, maybe they're less likely to say, Dad, was math hard for you too?
Yeah.
You know, they might say, well, math is hard for me. And then I can just imagine a parent saying, I know, but you still have to do it, right? Because maybe you have some other kids that have some needs, or it's 8:00 and you know that we've got to get to bedtime, right? I don't think that we're as aware that in everything we do, there's an emotional need to be met. And when we can slow down and tune into that emotional need, we have the ability or the potential to co-regulate, and then the tasks get better.
Yeah. I wonder how differently that could go. Yeah, I remember this being really hard when I was your age too, you know. And I really, you know, I'm having trouble right now because I don't understand the way that, you know, they're so, oh gosh, I can't imagine how you must be having trouble with it.
And there's that co-regulation piece, right? Yeah, go ahead, keep going, sorry.
Yeah. You know, okay, well, let's figure this out together.
Or even making some space. So tell me, what's feeling hard? And it's really less of a focus of the math problem as it is, let me get to know your inner emotional world.
Right.
Let me be with you in that emotion. I don't know, maybe there's future episodes to expand, like, because I can imagine, I think, well, what the heck would that look like or sound like to really stay focused on the emotion?
I can bring one of my children in to do math.
Don't do that.
We can record it on video.
Well, listen, we can spend the whole time talking emotion.
You can see and feel the frustration in the room, and you know,
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I was there, and I know we were saying, you know, so many parents might say, "I'm sorry, you're just going to have to ask your teacher about this."
Yeah.
And while that makes sense on one level, what's that?
It's kind of, you just need to ask your dad.
Yeah.
I don't know what the heck is here.
Yes.
I've got to go relearn this myself.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it makes sense on one level because the homework does need to get done.
Yeah.
Right. You do. Although I love the memes that say, "I'm so glad I learned algebra. That's really helping me prepare my taxes," or whatever.
Right.
You know,
right.
We learn these things that are beneficial, but you know, whatever. Anyways, that is a need. But there is also I would maybe argue a bigger need on the table, and that is the co-regulation, the emotional regulation that starts with co-regulation,
right,
and then becomes the process by which the child learns to self-regulate, or the person learns to self-regulate. So in that example, when you said, "This was hard for me," I can only imagine what that's feeling like for you.
Yeah.
So the more you can say that to your kid, or your partner, whoever, it's never too late to co-regulate or to learn self-regulation skills, then the more that phrase becomes a part of their own thoughts, right?
Yeah.
For them to say, "Oh, what is this like for me right now?" And the more we can stay with that emotion, of course, you're feeling frustrated. I think you're doing a great job. It's so hard to stay with things that are frustrating, but you're really doing it. You know, then again, wouldn't it be great if that's the words that we tell ourselves, right? Okay, this is really frustrating, but I'm doing it. I'm sticking with it. And that is important. That's how I'm going to get better, right? To have that safe, supportive other as a resource inside of ourselves to turn to, that then grows within ourself the ability to be our own resource. And it's not that, you know, we want to become our own resource and then we don't need people. We need both.
Yeah. You know, in that too, you know, and I keep thinking about these tasks that are like unfamiliar to us, that are hard for us because we don't understand the goal, or we don't understand the process. But you know, our own insecurities prevent us from asking for that for asking for the help, because we haven't had experience with that co-regulation. We haven't had experience with somebody being able to come alongside us and offering that help, or you know, accepting our own invitation. Can you help me with this? Right. You know, because we do get that message, you know, when we're doing our homework when we're 8 years old, that, oh, well, mom and dad don't know, I have to do it on my own. And like that, it doesn't become a choice for us anymore. That's just like, we have to do it on our own. Yeah. So that it's tough. I mean, it's just thinking about that. I mean, it feels really hard to carry, really heavy to carry that with you. Yeah. And if we haven't had help there before, then the procrastination
or perfectionism makes so much sense, because on, a physiological level, your body knows no one is going to be there. And alone and struggling is an awful place to be. And so why wouldn't you push that off?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you find a way away from that place until you have absolutely no choice?
Yeah.
It makes me think of, and this might be a silly example, but in the workshops we show the video of the rhesus monkeys, the Harry Harlow study, where the little baby rhesus monkeys had a terry cloth mom and that just provided that comfort of the soft cloth, and then had a mom that was a wire mom but had a bottle so that the monkey could feed. And it seems like not a totally inappropriate example of this, right? So the monkey stayed with the terry cloth mom the majority of the day.
Right.
And it was only when it couldn't take it anymore and had to eat that it would go to the mother that was not comforting, was not, that maybe there was this sense of I'm alone here, right? There's no comfort. So same thing with procrastination. We'll avoid the alone and struggling feeling as long as we possibly can until we have no choice.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not so clear, but so I guess maybe let's land the plane. What we're saying is procrastination and perfectionism can be blocks to connection. And I think we sort of touched on that in the sense that we're not asking for help. We're maybe not identifying our needs. But if we can hold that there are very good reasons to do these things, and we can be curious about our own experiences, our own upbringings, and share that with our partner, that gives room for a lot of connection. And then we know how to support each other.
Yeah. If we can understand ourselves a little bit better, to maybe give our partner some insight, then they can help us. They can come alongside us to understand that we don't have to do it on our own. We're not alone in it. We're not, we haven't been abandoned. We're not being rejected. There is somebody that'll come alongside us if we just give them the opportunity to. Right.
Yeah.
But it starts with being curious.
Yeah.
With ourselves.
And I don't think, kind of like the last episode, we would have thought, we didn't think, how could anger be relational? How could procrastination and perfectionism be relational?
Yeah.
And yet here we are. So if you identify, if you say I kind of struggle with procrastination, or I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist, could you be curious about why that has worked for you, and also maybe the ways it blocks connection?
Be curious.
If you were feeling stuck, or if anything in this episode resonated with you, where this is kind of going on in your relationship and you would like some more support through this, we've got some resources for you.
Yeah, you might want the support of an EFT therapist, and you can find one in your area by going to iceeft.com and search by location. Or we would love to have you attend one of our workshops, and we will include registration information in the show notes.